Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's a delight to introduce Seba Al-Khamis to start this panel on the future of public art.
Hello everyone, thank you so much Laura. Thank you for joining us today. As Laura said, I'm Seba Al-Khamis. I'm a cultural researcher and a podcast host for Vision Culture and Policy podcast. I'm honored today to be with three of the most talented artists in Noor Riyadh. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I'd like to thank Noor Riyadh for an amazing turnout from curating this event, Dr. Refik and Fernando. Thank you so much. Alfredo, I'm sorry, Alfredo. It's nice, right? Alfredo, nice, very beautiful work, amazing turnout. Let's talk about your work, and congratulations on what you guys have done. Amazing turnout. So let's start with you, Ebtehal. You started with the work. Your work is it's illuminated souls. Can you tell us about the artwork?
Thank you first. I'm glad to be here with you today. So, illuminated soul. The work Limited Soul get inspired me and Mohammed in this work as the 05 studio from a quote of Rumi that we are stars, we are with the light, covered with skins, the light inside us. And as you know, in Arab cultures now we used to use the stars as a guide. So we got inspired.
Beautiful, that's amazing. And this is your first this is your debut with Noor Riyadh, is that right?
Yes.
The first time
participating.
That's beautiful. So when it comes to, and it's also your first large-scale artwork.
Yes.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about, because you usually work with, you're a multidisciplinary artist, so you work with a lot of things, but this is your biggest one yet.
Yes.
What were the challenges? Because I bet there were a lot.
It was an amazing experience, to be honest, but somewhat a lot of challenging we're facing, but we learned a lot. Using lights, technology in a large scale form. I believe that any large scale artworks that need to be a teamwork, and we need to collaborate as there is behind every public art there's a huge team work together day and night to deliver such art.
Absolutely. Oh, amazing work.
Thank you.
It's in Wadi Khalifa if anyone wants to go see the work. I encourage everyone to go see the work. So just to make note of all the artists that are here are very diverse. So it's a very diverse group of artists. Rafik is an AI-driven artist, is that right? And then Lachlan is, your art is very kinetic, very light, you work with water and sound. And can you tell us about the artwork that you have created? Because it's located in Wadi Khalifa, and it's also, it's located in Wadi Khalifa, and you have made it somewhat site-specific.
Yes, my name's Lachlan, and I often work with water and light as my mediums. The work that I created this year was a newly commissioned piece for Wadi Khalifa, and it is a series of 3 lighthouse towers along the shore of the body of water that's there. And it was just a really amazing opportunity to kind of collaborate with the natural phenomena of Saudi Arabia, the incredible atmosphere that I've seen here. I think, so I showed last year, and I think one of the most profound things that really struck me was how, when there were some clouds in the air, you'd really see these like shafts of sunlight falling through that. And I think that the sand, the particles in the air really make light so visible, you can really see the trajectory of light. So when I was invited this year to create a new piece, I knew I wanted to work with that really incredible atmosphere, which really captures light and reflects it back to our eye.
Beautiful, and I bet there was a lot of research that went into what became the artwork.
Yeah, so I'm based in Los Angeles in California, and I would drive out quite a lot to Death Valley this last year, which is a very arid climate. It's actually the hottest place in Northern California, or North America, and I think it has a somewhat similar climate to Saudi Arabia for some of the year. And there was an incredible body of water that had formed there from a tropical storm. And so it became for me kind of like an outdoor studio. I was able to kind of recreate some of the situations that we find here in Wadi Hanifa.
And last year your work was indoors, and this year it's outdoors. Were there any different challenges when it comes to, because working with light is, and I love that, the fact that each and every one of you is a different type of artist, but at the same time, you all use the same exact medium to showcase your art. So what was the differences when it comes to working indoors and outdoors, and the scale of it all?
Yeah, so I showed here in Jax last year, I showed a piece called Wave Space, which is kind of a liquid projector, again, water and light, and I was just reflecting and refracting light through a small pool of water to create a liquid lens, so sort of shaping and sculpting light using water. And then this year, it is more about these three lighthouse towers that shine light down onto the wadi, into the water. It is much larger and a lot more chaotic. There's a lot less control that you have there, so you're relinquishing a lot of artistic control and power, and you sort of have to embrace those imperfections, those chance opportunities that can be really mind-blowing. I think it can be a really exciting place to be. I'll just give a couple anecdotes. There's a small family of ducks that were my #1 audience this year.
Okay.
They were along the shore for the entire install. I could get so close to them. I could never been, I don't know, you guys have really friendly animals out here. You saw them? Yeah, there's also a cat that was living in one of the towers as well. And then all the families that will kind of camp out in the wadi in the evening and have these fires and be cooking food. It's just such a heartwarming and endearing space to be in. And I was really excited by some of the smoke from some of those cookouts would just waft through the beam. And what sometimes can appear ephemeral or invisible all of a sudden becomes this really, solid light sculpture, which for me is really exciting, that how it can kind of fluctuate in between being invisible and then being very present.
It's very beautiful. I have to ask, were the ducks a part of the inspiration for the artwork in any way possible?
Happy accident.
Okay. Rafik, you are one of the pioneers when it comes to AI, and it's something that scares me personally, honestly, I don't know. But when it comes to art, it's very beautiful, and you do something that is very captivating. You have to stand and look at it, maybe you can stand for hours. So when it comes to developing a public artwork, what are the priorities?
Absolutely. So first of all, so happy to be back in Riyadh, second time in Noor Festival. And I have so wonderful Saudi friends, and I know what it means to create such an incredible, scale, challenging curation. And by the way, just to let you know, last time we were in this beautiful interior space, like yourself, this year outside. I would say the biggest challenge, I started working with data and computers 2008. I coined the term, I think, the data painting, the idea of data. If you think information or data, not just numbers, but think it as a form of memory and emotion that can take any shape, any form, any color, that doesn't have Newtonian physical constraints, that this pigment doesn't dry, that can shape and take anything and everything in the mind of creative thinking. I think this really liberates many ideas. And I think light, like all of us using light as a material, light to me is one of the most incredible material that is at point, wavelength, spiritual, and life source. So I think we know that light is one of the most incredible materials in the world. But I thought that merging data, AI, and light together, perhaps there's a new material. Perhaps we can think about architecture of the future that is beyond concrete, glass, and steel. And if you think all this together, I found that maybe there's a world that we can imagine and compute and program these concepts through different form of art. But the challenge of public art is, first of all, I think public art is one of the most incredible form of art that is for anyone, any age, any culture. There is no door, there is no ceiling. It's just like open to everyone. And I think it's the most liberated form of imagination. And I think Noor Riyadh Festival does this in the most amazing scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the challenge, I would say, is still the scale, being sure outdoor technologies, like we all use complex materials, computation. The weather can be sometimes challenging around the world, but it's so exciting to make art for anyone and everyone.
That's absolutely true. And while all of us were on Microsoft Paint, trying to do a star, you were putting data and color and all of these things together and creating art that is actually sustainable, not going to be deleted soon. This is a question for all of the emerging artists in public art. Which advice would you give them when it comes to what considerations should they put in mind? I work with public art and sometimes I work with artists. The one thing I feel like that's a reoccurring issue is maybe not getting the site-specific information on the place itself and not keeping in mind the considerations. And when they do that, they tend to lose their artistic flair or artistic feel to it. So how do you guys strike the balance between doing something that is considering the limitations, but also staying true to your artistry? Difficult question, I'm sorry if I...
I think considering the location of the artworks is very important. So we want to integrate with the location, and I believe that the beauty of the Noor Riyadh Festival is blending the artworks with the environment. So it's challenging, but
you can get it done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Rafik's sentiment. I mean, I think working in the public sphere can be so exciting because you don't have this barrier to entry. It's for everybody at all times. I've worked on a lot of public fountains. I've done, the Singapore airport fountain. I worked on the Dubai Expo fountain. So these are really interesting artworks, but it's also a fountain. I think there's like a fun distinction there. It's functioning. It serves a function, and it needs to be maintained. It needs to, it has a life of its own, really. And when you relinquish it to the public, you kind of, again, lose control. There's that element of like no longer, your artistic intentions say, if you wanted this one aspect to happen, all of a sudden the kids get in there and they start climbing on the walls. Like that's something that happened with this fountain we did in Dubai, where we didn't intend for it to be this kind of kid playground, but the moment we opened it up, it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen.
Yeah, fountain and kids, I mean,
yeah.
Come on, it has to happen.
Yeah, and it, I think, broke a lot of social barriers. I think people were taking their shoes off and just running in and were like completely soaked. And it was just an opportunity to really provide that kind of joy that I think audiences really responded to.
I think for me, like this example, one of the examples of our work in the studio, Gaudi's Casa Batlló in Barcelona, we received 65,000 people when we honored the life of Gaudi through his building. I think the form of public art can be fascinating if, of course, maybe one day only event, and not necessarily many weeks, but I think what was very exciting to me is when the city and the person and the building and the space has some special connection. I mean, it was very magical. I felt that people came to hug the building. You know, that was a very, very interesting feeling. And I think it's possible to activate the city, the people, and if there's like a room for the building, the monument, the land, I think it's very possible to activate that feeling. And I think it's possible through light, data, AI, if there's a research that the artist can apply some research logic that goes deep into the idea itself and maybe explore some emerging technologies, not necessarily complex AI training or whatever. It can be relatively much simpler because now the current open source information in the internet is like remarkably friendly and equally free for everyone and anyone. And I think embedding some, I'm very obsessed with machine learning algorithms. I'm a self-learned programmer, but I know that right now, by just buying a book, the money of a book is a student, or less coffee, a little bit one more extra book, and you can really get that AI model in your pocket or in your notebook that you can really program anything and everything in just 5 minutes. So that was not possible 2 years ago in Noor Festival, but this is the year of AI. I think artists can apply this logic through the machine learning algorithms and light as the material and find that magic. It's very possible.
That's very beautiful and very difficult. As much as you're saying it's in your pocket, but the programming itself,
the logic still needs to be developed. I think it's very doable.
But what advice would you give? What advice would you give a young artist that wants to get into public art? Because we're talking large scale, we're talking commissions, and you have to get noticed by public entities and governments and galleries to actually get commissioned to get an artwork done. It's not just, oh, I want to just do this and stay at home. So what advice would you give someone that wants to get into this, and what can they prepare themselves for?
Okay, I believe that they need to explore more and try many different materials and make a lot of proposals. They just put the proposals and send it away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly not being too attached or not afraid of rejection. I think that happens quite a lot in these larger projects.
Yeah.
Knowing what the work, like, how it should function. Like if you're, so I've done some projects that are kind of like in between spaces. You have these transitory moments that they're looking for a work, and so making sure that that serves a function almost. I think it is a strange realm to be in, but the work can't be, like block a courtyard or something like that. It needs to kind of be aware and site-specific, kind of what the needs are for the community. But I think every good public artwork does do that, where it builds community. It creates kind of like this collective space for people to gather and to kind of take joy in the space that they're in, the city, the country, all those different aspects.
I totally agree with both of you, and I think for me now almost 16 years since my first public art piece, and I still don't feel that there's enough experiment. I think failures are incredibly important for artists. But when I say failure, we maybe every year prepare 10 proposals, half of them may be failing and so forth. It's so normal to fail so much and kill the ego and detach the ego from the idea and find this thing that, as you mentioned, brings people together. I think that touch the mind and the soul together. And I think this is very inspiring for any artist, I think, any age, any culture. It is pretty much doable to find that new storytelling, new materials, and again, lots of failures. I think it's very beautiful to fail and then fail better and fail again. And I think then one time maybe something will click, right? And it will make that moment. And I'm sure that curators and the cultural leaders will just feel about it. Why this is different than the other works, and why this is maybe more unique than the other. Oh, maybe there's a new vocabulary here that artists discover, a new medium, a new feeling that we never felt before. And I think that's exactly where the new art form emerge.
Wow, that's beautiful. Very well put. This year your work is called Coral Dreams, and you have traveled to the ocean and took pictures of corals and merged them together. And can you tell us about the artwork?
Yes, so like many artists, I'm in love with nature. I think nature is the most important thing we have. Nature is the most inspiring thing we have. And for centuries, artists just love nature. But in the age of AI, I feel that we can go maybe next level of imagination, that where we can train neural networks with pretty much anything and everything about the nature. So last, I would say 6 years, we collect more than 500 million images ethically, and then we train more than 400 AI models about nature. And the corals are, I don't know how you feel about it, but they're this invisible beauty of life that we don't see. And I know, by the way, in the Saudi also, there's incredible, like...
You see the Red Sea?
Yes, we have lots of data from the artwork, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think site-specific context of the artwork, I think coming from the Red Sea side.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so site-specific to Saudi as a whole.
Yes,
yeah.
There are tons of information. So we trained this neural network with 135 million images of corals. And then there are multiple neural networks when you make art with AI. Some of them are well known with Journey, Fiddle AI and all that stuff, but we just prefer to create our own neural networks from scratch, which requires a lot of GPU compute and a research with data, and it takes, by the way, 6 months to clean data to be sure it's the right thing. And then when you train it in neural network, then there's artistic computation, which I love the fluid dynamics, that like how Monet imagines the beautiful flowers and nature or atmosphere. I felt that this is a similar thinking. And then thanks to Noor Riyadh again, we brought here 6 meter by 12 meter, I think our largest LED media wall. So I hope you can see and feel it. And thanks to the team, by the way, in just, I would say, a couple of weeks, from Los Angeles to here, and all that crates came and just put together in a scaffolding. Magic to the team, again, one more time, thanks to everyone.
Thanks to everyone.
Truly like a magical team. And as you mentioned, hundreds of people doing wonderful work. And then we put the work in a way that there's this a frame around my work is representing the illusion of life. Where we see things in life, I think is very inspiring. And in the Italian Renaissance, there is lots of trompe-l'oeils where the artists have been exploring the perception of life. So they just came together in the form of an artwork in King Abdulaziz in Cultural Center.
Historical district, yes.
Yeah.
For me, when I saw the artwork, it felt like maybe it can seem like a moving canvas with a digital canvas that is ever so changing, and it's beautiful. You're welcome. Lachlan, I wanted to ask about the naming of your artwork. So it's Liquid Light, and you also named it in Arabic. Is that right? They have it here, but I'm not sure it's the right the right one for me. If I read it, it's gonna sound
Is
wrong.
it Aldwa Al-Sayal? Is that how you...
Yeah. Yes. مكتوب الضوء السائل. الأضواء السائل. هنا مكتوب الأضواء السائلة. السهل أو شيء زي كذا. Okay. Yeah. Okay. الضوء السائل. Okay. Yes. Sorry, guys.
I must be pronouncing it wrong.
No. You are. You are.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to, because this work was commissioned for this festival this year, I wanted to name it, in the mother tongue of the country that I'm, installing it in. And yeah, it just comes from, when we describe light, we imbue it with so many, oftentimes liquid qualities. You say a pool of sunlight in English, I suppose, or light streams down through a window. And for me, so often working with water is really just becoming that physical correlate, the way of kind of arresting light, stopping it, and suspending it so that we can feel it as a physical presence. I think it is this thing that suffuses us. It's everywhere around us, but so often there's not these moments where you can really feel it as a palpable presence, and that is really kind of the thesis of this new body of work, this idea that light can become a physical object, it can divide space, it can create architecture potentially, it can, we don't need to be stopped by physical limitations, but our dreams can actually be realized in this kind of non-corporeal way.
Beautiful. What are some of the challenges that you faced creating this artwork and working with light in general?
Well, you have a set of tools. I've been using laser projectors most recently, which is really interesting. I think that there's so many screen-based things. like a normal projector, it shines light through an LCD screen that is sort of like how all of our phones and our computers work. It's a grid of pixels that sort of say yes or no, red or green or blue, and you can create an image that way. It's incredibly complex. I'm like totally simplifying it. But with lasers, you have this, it's more about like 3D printing almost with light. You have these two scanning mirrors that are deflecting a beam in the same way that a 3D printer will like move and scan and create a physical form. That's the way a laser works. And so I think that thinking about it in that like really tangible way has been, it's a limitation though, because you can't like create a full color image with a laser. You can only do so much. So I think that, you know, the work that I've made is definitely a product of the time. It's a product of the limitations, but I'm also trying to push those limitations as far as possible. And I think I do that by like really inviting, you know, the natural world into the work and letting the wind take the haze a different direction. But you know, you sort of put your marks on the canvas and you let the ink kind of flow from there.
Beautiful. And I love the fact that you said we usually use water or terms as a pool of light or streams, and the way that now it all makes sense. You know what? Make it make sense, and it made sense. Okay, so I feel like one of the things that are happening right now in the country is, not I feel, it's a fact, something that is happening right now is thanks to Noor Riyadh and other entities, we can see a lot more public art in the country. Jeddah is one of the cities that has done this years and years ago, but maybe Riyadh isn't as up to date as Jeddah when it comes to that. But now it is, and which brings me to my question. What is the future of public art when it comes to Saudi? What do you guys see the positioning of public art in the country?
I think with all these upcoming projects and the vision of 2030, we have a bright future of public art. And I think local artists need to be, to increase the local artists, we need to, I think they needed to trust more, and they need the support to produce more public art.
Amazing.
I think from a maybe AI perspective, I think that AI most likely means anything and everything, but I think the big question should be AI should be for anyone and everyone. Perhaps there's these amazing opportunities where AI ethically used and nature-friendly energies used and truly showcase good examples. Because I think at the moment the tech giants are remarkably making big leap throughs every single morning. I mean, let's think about it. Conventional artists have a brush, have a pigment, and a canvas. Most likely they are the same tools, but every day their ideas change, right? Yeah. But in the age of AI, like literally every morning, your brush, your pigment, and your canvas changing every moment. So I think this creates this like little bit anxiety for some artists, and they may like feel like am I outdated? Like am I like, you know, catching up something a very fast plane? So it's very normal. But I think when the artist captures the speed of innovation and discoveries and apply to the logic of public art, which I'm sure in Riyadh and many places, like in Jeddah you mentioned, there can be an extraordinary new form of art form. And I think Noor Riyadh is doing it already, to be honest. Like, I mean, there's an incredible, like, images back to back. We are seeing how it's already doing it. Like, maybe it doesn't need to be too much, just Noor Riyadh on steroids, and maybe it takes, like, a permanent thing.
They love that.
Maybe the formula is here.
Yes. What do you think, Lachlan?
Yeah, I completely agree. I was here last year for the announcement of the 2030 Expo, and we got to experience one of the most spectacular drone shows that I've ever seen. It was, you know, a beautiful choreography of lights in the sky, and then all of a sudden they started dropping like fireworks on top of that, and I'd never seen anything like that before. I think that the opportunities are out of this world, kind of like the resources and the acknowledgement that this is really important, that this actually has like a lasting impact on the experience and can kind of shape culture is understood. We're seeing that here in Noor Riyadh, and I think that it's gonna. I feel like I have no question in my mind that we're gonna be seeing some of the most outrageous public artworks that are gonna be just like so incredible coming out of Saudi Arabia.
Inshallah, hopefully, I have no doubt in Saudi talents and all the artists that. Even the artists that are giving the opportunity for the local artists to shadow them, to learn from them, I have no doubt that you'll see beautiful things soon, inshallah. One more question. What is the value of public art? Because, like you said, some people, it could be functional, it could be a fountain, it could be seating, it could be shading, it could be a lot of things. But the feeling that a person has when they go to a place and they see an artwork, a public artwork, and they know that, oh, I'm here, or it creates a sense of belonging to, and I don't want to say nostalgic, but it's a connection that you make with the artwork and you make with the space itself. So what's the value of public art in your opinion?
Well, I have a couple of quick anecdotes from my world of working with fountains, like the Bellagio fountain in Las Vegas or the Dubai fountain underneath the Khalifa. You can't put a number on it. Like speaking strictly in like financial terms, like every hotel that outlooks on these fountains, like those are going to be more expensive hotels than the ones on the other side of the building. But the memories that are formed along the promenade as you're standing out there, it's not something that can be quantified with just numbers. It's something that is, I think, incredibly valuable, and I think people know that. I think that we see that through culture. It becomes these iconic ways of kind of letting the rest of the world know what your values are and what your, how you are like actively taking a role in shaping your story and your narrative as a city, as a country, as a population.
I think the value of a public art is really sometimes, I think, priceless, because I think some form of art can move people to places that they've never been before. And it happened personally to me, like in some performances, some artworks, I received so special from heart messages from the local of where the artwork is. I think that's something very inspiring. And also in the United States, there is this 1% rule, where each real estate development has to give 1% of their budget back to public art, where you do like RFPs, requests for proposals, that artists are, in a kind of a competition, and there's a beautiful community like our curators. They sit together and look at the best form of art. I think it can be an amazing model that where the real estate, like the developer of the building, has a tone on it, but the opportunity open to everyone, and maybe every artist can contribute and make a beautiful one small group of people, a commission where they vote, and maybe the winner is remarkably gets the torch, and maybe the next building something else, the next building something, and it can just create an incredible new value system. So I think it works great for the last 50 years in USA, and maybe it can be an amazing model to apply in a new way.
Let me challenge you with this. I've recently, I've been told there's an artwork in New York. I don't remember which year exactly, but the artist was commissioned to create an artwork for a park. Yes. So he was commissioned to create an artwork for a park, and he created this wall where people... Yes. People were so upset, they didn't want this artwork, and they signed like petitions and stuff to get the wall taken off. They didn't want this to be there. This is something that hurts the artist's ego, that's one. And second of all, the artist said he would not be displaying this anywhere else. It was specifically made for that park. So in this case, what would an artist do? Because it's very frustrating, and people don't want to see your art at this point, and they're telling you to go home.
I know the story of the artwork, and I was able to ask Richard Serra, by the way, personally. the story is extremely exciting, by the way, great question. So the artist, I don't feel so much hurt because it's a very controversial artist that I think likes to have a contribution from the public to get this like interaction. I mean, but it's very early, of course, example that there wasn't like social media, there wasn't like any like those debates online. So he got the heat through the physical paper. People are signing. Yes, I don't want this. Yes. And he said it's kind of like a positive thing for him because it moved the people to a different direction than he imagined, most likely. But I heard that he was very happy to be able to at least make a movement in the society. Maybe not the best one, but
what they say is any publicity is bad or good. It's good. So all media is good media. There you go. Exactly. So good for Richard.
That's what he said to his galleries.
Fair enough. What do you think, Lachlan?
I mean, I think that that sentiment of like, okay, the city has spoken, right? Like, I mean, that's part of the deal. If you make something and it doesn't serve the public, if the public feel like it's an affront, it's somehow dividing them. I mean, I think I know the work. It's this giant division of a courtyard.
Yeah.
I think that
you would get why they signed the petition.
Well, I love Richard Serre's work, and I personally would be like, if I lived in that building, I'd be stoked to have his work there. But I might be in the minority, and I think if you have to like, it's a kind of a democratic thing. I think the society gets to decide that, and if that happens, that you throw the towel in, you have to like concede to the public at large. I think.
Fair enough. Ebtehal, what do you think?
I think it's part of the experience for the artist sometimes to
get this backlash.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I love public art. I love talking to artists, and thank you all for being here. Thank you for. Yes, questions and answers. When anyone wants to ask.
Thank you so much for this really lovely talk. First of all, Rafik, I'm a very big fan of you. I've been watching a lot of your work on YouTube and it's very inspiring. My question comes actually about AI because I'm in the fintech space and I'm looking at how AI is really revolutionizing everything. And prompting, getting advanced, as you mentioned, on a daily basis, and the way AI is learning is ridiculous. So my question is, like, since you've been working on AI, do you speculate, that, because I don't know what the next generation is going to do. Like, we have traditional art, and now we have digital, and all the way to AI. Do you think AI will be leveraged mostly to produce any kind of art? Because at the moment it's partial, and I'm seeing this in business.
Thank you for the wonderful words. Thank you very much. I think my most close encounter with what AI's possibility was at MoMA last year in New York when we put our artwork with our curators to like sit together and train a model that intentionally never ever makes existing work copied in the work was a very different than training a model bottom-up, checkpoint, or any type of like large language models or division models. I feel like artists will need to truly challenge the logic of AI itself. If the artists do not push forward the system of AI as itself, I think it will not create a breakthrough. Because in my mind, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Midjourney, whatever like image model that we can think about, I think they are itself are the breakthroughs. Therefore, I don't think artists can make breakthroughs. For example, this April, thanks to Jansen Huang, one of our collectors, also supporters at Media, we trained an AI model from scratch. And it took us 1.5 years. We're a very small team, not like technical giants. But when we trained the model from scratch, it was doing something completely different than any ready models, right? And in that case, I know as an artist that this model has a very unique appetite, structures, vocabulary, aesthetics, and eventually creativity. I hope that there will be entities that will allow artists to bring their own data and train their own models and to make new breakthroughs. If it doesn't happen, I think that we will have this pretty much static line. But if the artist can explore this bumpy road of innovation and discoveries, there can be a lot of breakthroughs. And I really hope that people will help artists, because training a model is very expensive. And just to put a number, like it costs sometimes $6 million for just a 1/8 billion parameter image model. I mean, how many artists on earth can do that? So that's a break. It's an interesting wall that we should be aware of it. And if there are people supporting this genre, it can make every day a breakthrough.
Thank you. There's a question here.
Hi, first I wanted to thank you all for being here. That was very, very beautiful and enjoyable. We learned a lot. I have a question since we're talking about public art. The fine line between art being accessible and art losing its essence through being commercial when it becomes public. And I think this question comes mainly from emerging artists that are quite scared to lose, that thing they hold really closely to the heart, that when art becomes public, they may kind of lose to people
Becomes
that are
commodified.
not,
It becomes not real.
especially for people that are not in the arts industry. Refik, I see you nodding your head. Your answer seems to be ready. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Just very quickly, I think it's a feeling to let it go. So my partner, my wife, she is exactly in the same space last 10 years. So she has been practicing, and I remember her first exhibition, and when her first work sold, I remember she doesn't want to give to collector. It was this moment that I just don't want to be happy. And I completely relate to that feeling of like, as soon as your work is out of the world, as soon as your ideas, your emotions, your spirituality, your feelings and your tear and hearts is there, right? I mean, you just give to someone else. But to me, public art is one of the most inspiring version of it. You give it back to society, not to like just one person or a home or something. I feel there's merit in it. There is some power in it when it's done right. So I feel that it's an amazing feeling when your work is out there and people around there. It's something very magical. I think it's not commercial. It is some sort of a service to community. That's how I see it, but
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like a selfless act, I think, to relinquish a work and kind of give it a new life with the public.
اوكي، مساء الخير. انا يمكن ابدا بدايه، او اعذروني اتحدث الان بالعربي. ومسؤوليه الان الترجمه. شكرا. فالفكره انه يعني الفن الكلاسيكي او القديم كان الفنان بيجلس في الاستوديو وكل مشاعره في نفس اللحظه بيلصقها على اللوحه. فما في مسافه بين مشاعره بين تنفيذ العمل الفني. تطور العمل الان، صار الفنون المعاصره، صار الفنان بيفكر ويخطط ويعمل ريسيرش وتصير مسافه بين مشاعره وبين تنفيذ العمل. انا اخشى من حاجه ثانيه الان، اللي هو المرحله اللي بعدها، اللي هي مرحله تدخل الذكاء الاصطناعي. ومعليش انا اقول الذكاء الاصطناعي واحطها بين قوسين، لانه انا ارفض كلمه ذكاء اصطناعي، ارفضها بالكامل. هي السيطره على البيج داتا. الذكاء الاصطناعي اعتقد لا يليق الا بالانسان، هذا في رايي. والفن اذا في تدخل للسيطره على البيج داتا، اعتقد انه بصمه الفنان او فراده الانسان الفريد، اعتقد انها حذوه. والدليل انه المتلقي الان بدا يشعر انه في الاعمال الفنيه، يقول هنا في تدخل ذكاء اصطناعي، بدا يشعر بهذا الشيء. الوسيط اعتقد انه هو حيسحب البساط من فراده الانسان او بصمه الانسان الفريده من العمل الفني. فهذا ما اخشاه بالنسبه بشكل عام الفنون اللي فيها تدخل ذكاء اصطناعي. العمل الببليك والعام الخاص بالعامه، انا اعتقد انه الشيء اللي احنا بنشوفه حاجه مره عظيمه، واكثر شيء ويمكن هذا هدف من الاهداف العظيمه الصراحه لنور الرياض، انه هو يجمع الناس، بيخلي الناس بيخرجوا من بيوتهم، من مقاعدهم، من كراسيهم، الى انهم هم يتجمعوا. انا اخشى برضو الذكاء الاصطناعي انه هو يفرقهم، ما يخليهم يجتمعوا، حيعتمدوا على جوالاتهم، حيعتمدوا على بيوتهم، فبالتالي دور المدينه حيذوب. اماكن الساحات الكبيره والحدائق حتكون مش موجوده. معلش هذا هو سؤال، ما ادري هو سؤال او كذا.
انا حبيت بس اعطيني فرصه علشان اجمع كيف حترجم. Okay, so it's more of an observation rather than a question. He says that usually an artist is in his studio and working on an idea, putting it on a canvas, and there's not much space between the artist and the art itself. But when it comes to AI, and he says AI in quotations, I quote, intelligence is something related to humans, and this is dehumanizing the art experience, and it's drifting us further away from the true meaning of what art is and what's the essence of it. And he has sets an example about Noor Riyadh, and that a lot of people are leaving their homes, coming to see the artworks, the displays, the exhibitions. But with AI, maybe people would be on their phones and further away and not disconnected. And yeah, أتمنى أن يجد صح.
I think just to maybe portray what does it mean to work with AI is not so different than an artist in the studio at night listening music, trying to find how to draw a beautiful line or a chisel with like a marble or a beautiful like challenges that we all go through. It's not so different. It is actually very similar because I'm a hands-on artist. I program each of these AI myself, that I know exactly the parameters. So when we train AI models with the intention of a curated data, you created a mathematical representation of a possibility, which is called the latent space. So let's imagine a 10 to 24 dimensions. So imagine that you are programming the chance and the control, which I think they are the two important elements of any art forms. So technically, we are not so distant from creating the art as it is, like a painting or a sculpture or performance, but it's more about programming the chance and control in the most fundamental layer of imagination. So it's actually a lot of work that is not a lazy work, there is no shortcut, there is no like, let me just throw it here and even, I mean, there is nothing like that.
I don't want to cut you off. I don't think he meant it was lazy. I think he meant it was maybe dehumanizing the experience itself, and that's the essence of it.
So, but what I want to say, because there's so much work on it, the more like if the AI model from scratch trained, if the artists collect data by traveling, by recording sound, by recording images, by videos, it becomes a new pigment, right? And then on top of it, I see that it is finding human in non-human. When we let these AI models wander in these infinite possibilities, there is still that artist that selecting what it shows.
The human that made this
exactly. So it's not about like just a machine, it is machine and human collaboration. So I think sometimes that's, not every AI art is like that, but when the artist truly put the heart and the mind, I think that is very different than any other AI output, I think.
Can I add something? Salwa? Can I add something?
أنا أتوقع أنه فيه، أعتقد أنه المدينة الآن وضعها، عادة المدينة ترسم الأنظمة وتخلي الموضوع ماشي بالمسطرة. الفن دوره أنه يقتل المسطرة هذه. أنا أخشى أن المسطرة هذه الفن يتحول إلى مسطرة. يتحول
أفكر كيف أبغى أترجم. والله قاعدة أفكر خالد، لا بس ما عندي مشكلة أقول بس مسطرة شوي قول لي بس مصادر.
طيب خلينا نقول الفن ناتج خطأ. الذكاء الاصطناعي أنا متأكد 100% كثير من الفنون الموجودة 70-80% حالة خطأ. الذكاء الاصطناعي ما حيقدر الخطأ هذا، حيصير الفن جزء من مبنى قزاز منظم جميل، وهذا مش كويس، مش انساني.
طيب عادي.
عادي بس اقول تبغي تقولي؟
لا قولي بعدين.
تفضل. والله تقولي.
لا.
عشان ابغى افكر ايش حقول.
طيب اتوقع يعني من خبرتي كفنان اصلا بشتغل في الاستوديو زي ما انت تفضلت في البدايه، والان بستخدم الاي اي. اذا استخدمنا الاي اي از تولز ما نستخدمه انه وهو الشيء اللي بيسوي الارت اور ارت، يعني احنا نستخدمه كاداه زي ما نستخدم فرشه، زي ما نستخدم الكانفاس، زي ما نستخدم الادوات، نقدر نستخدم الاي اي، لكن ما نترك العمل كامل للاي اي هو اللي ينفذه. ما اعرف اذا هو يعتمد في النهايه، ما نقدر نقول هو اداه تكتشر الفن او ما تكتشر الفن، يعتمد اولا واخيرا على كل فنان كيف حيستخدم الاي اي.
Okay, so what he came back with, it was that with you, like art is created from mistakes and from being chaotic and being human. And when you introduce AI to art, it creates something with no mistakes and the prompt is correct, everything is correct, and nothing is.
Actually,
Yeah.
just to say one thing, the work is called machine dreams or machine hallucinations, meaning we intentionally let AI to not to work as it is. So you can technically take AI and let it not learn, but dream. So intentionally take the algorithm not to mimic reality, but go somewhere else. And I think that is very possible if you just program it when you are training the model, then you have this a new vocabulary, a new colors, new patterns, new mistakes, new failures. It is very possible.
Tamam? Okay. Any other question? Okay, there you go.
Good evening. Thank you so much first for this meaningful and impactful session, and congratulations to Noor Riyadh for the festival this year and for all the effort they put. Back to the artwork that you were talking about in New York, this big wall in the community. This raised a very big question, because the community is there, and as if we want to do something, as if we are interfering with this community. So based from your experience, how can you balance between your artistic freedom and the community's expectation? Thank you.
I think spending time with that community and really listening, I think is really a process of, you don't want to be projecting too much of yourself without other people, like without hearing feedback, and kind of almost in complete a silo or in an echo chamber. Really, you don't want to be just making your work and saying that's what it is and how it has to be, but it needs to be I think a dialogue with the community, really listening and really responding and hearing what the needs are and hearing what might be lacking. But sometimes it doesn't even come from that lacking. It comes from just going to a site and really observing the way that the light plays in the space, the way that you can sometimes do really minimal moves to really emphasize something that might be already present in that space and really shine a light on that in sometimes a very literal way for the public. It can be a celebration of what's already there, or it can work to solve a problem of a lack of a specific thing as well. So I think those two things. I think Richard Serra is one of those people who has such a strong artistic intention, and his materials seem very well codified, and in concrete terms he does these really monumental steel pieces. So I think that potentially he didn't really do the work to understand what that community was looking for.
And may I give you one example also? I think very, very similar to yours. I was so fortunate to live in the Amazonia in rainforest with a family called Yavanava. There are only 1,000 people, can live 120 years, but only 17 people can speak their language. It was fascinating to work with a young artist that they never drew in their life. they don't have iPads or whatever, so they don't have like any crayon or like any pigments. It was this very first time they draw this beautiful graphics. They are called canoes in their language. And it was fascinating to work with the community because I think it was a great example that what you mentioned. When you work with them hand in hand and co-create together, there is an incredible magic. By the way, we sold the same artwork on blockchain and gift back our all the artworks, and we raised $2.5 million. And we are building their museum and school in the Amazonia next year with their own creations, with their own culture back to them. So it's very possible to do Richard Serra work or work with them and give them back value as well.
Beautiful, thank you so much. Thank you for beautifying the beautiful city of Riyadh with your beautiful artworks. Thank you so much for everyone.
I just want to add one more thing, last but not least. Sabah, you were talking about public art in Riyadh and how you can see public art everywhere. After the announcement of Metro is opening on Sunday, we have 2 stations that has public artworks. It's a collaboration with the Metro project and Riyadh Art. So as you all know, Riyadh Art mission is to transform the city into a gallery without walls. So in Zaha Hadid's Metro, we have Robert and Diana Love. We have Alexander Calder, Genuini. And there's another metro station which we have The Sun by Ugur al-Benoni and Zaman Jassim. It's also one of the artworks that launched back in 2021 in Noor Riyadh. So there is a light art work by Zaman Jassim in the metro. So you are all welcome to the metro stations on Sunday.
We have homework to do, so it's Wadi Hanifa, the historical district, and Jax, and
the metro stations.
So yes, enjoy.
Nobody should see it, and yeah, for more public artworks in the city.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Thank you, Noor.
Bravo, Noor Riyadh.
Thank you.